And so our special guest this morning at the round table is a return visit from Dr. Maya Bass. Dr. Bass, welcome back. It's good to have you.
It's good to be back.
And appreciate you being here. Dr. Bass, I was doing some research for our visit this morning, and I want to read this, get this right. It says, all children 2 months of age and older must present a immunization record. Boy, that's a $2 word, isn't it? Immunization. Or file for an exemption before they are allowed to attend child care or school in Oklahoma. All children 2 months of age. Okay, that's the requirement. My question is, what's so special about 2 months
Right, so
of age and older?
Yeah, immunization, so that's that bigger word for getting your children up to date on their shots. We start those vaccinations at 2 months of age. So typically they'll get their first one either in the hospital or within that first month, and then the rest of the shots really happen every 2 months for the first 6 months of their life. Yeah.
So 2 months of age, is that pretty standard within the U.S.?
Yep, that's very standard. Actually, the CDC has come up with a pretty standardized vaccine schedule for the entire country. And 2 months is when we really do start. It's got a lot to do with the child's immune system and its ability to use those vaccines to help to protect it against diseases. The difference is that each state gets to decide what vaccines are actually required to go to school versus recommended.
Okay. So how does this requirement affect daycare centers?
In Oklahoma, registered daycare centers do require vaccination. So they have to be up to date on their vaccines for whatever age group they are when starting that daycare.
Regarding the vaccines, I remember talking to my daughter over the weekend. She was talking about getting all the records prepared so she can get her, son in school there in Norman. But what are the vaccines that are recommended? You said it varies from state to state. They determine which vaccines are required.
Right.
So what would be the standard requirement that impact children?
Yeah, so in Oklahoma, you're required to be up to date on 8 vaccines before you start grade school. So that's
8?
8, yes.
Okay.
So that's the DTaP, which
Is that 8 shots?
There are combination vaccines available, so it's not usually all 8, and you don't get all 8 necessarily at once.
Okay.
It depends as they get older.
Okay.
But those shots include the DTaP shots that protects you against diphtheria, tetanus, and whooping cough, hepatitis A and B, the MMR vaccine, so that's measles, mumps, and rubella, a shot against the pneumonia, polio, and then also the chickenpox shot. Yeah. And so all of those are required before heading into grade school in Oklahoma. Other states require other ones, and Oklahoma is a little bit more strict, needing the hepatitis B.
Before Sarah asks the next question, what would be the difference? Let's go back 50 years. That would date me a little bit. But what would be the big difference of me going to grade school way back then to today? Are there more shots? Undoubtedly, there's more information. But what would be the main difference?
Yeah, so definitely more shots now. We've actually, medical science has continued to grow, and we've been able to protect more and more kids against more and more common illnesses. And the other big thing is that before the 1970s, smallpox still existed, and so people were still getting the smallpox vaccine. Yeah. We stopped having to do that in the 70s. Okay. And we stopped actually having cases of polio, although we still vaccinate against it.
The reason I asked that, I just remember a couple shots way back when,
right.
Before I went to school. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
What facilities would you recommend for a child to receive their vaccines?
Yeah, so your pediatrician or family practice office can give your vaccinations. I work at Great Salt Plains Health Center, and we do all vaccinations for our child patients. But you can also go to the health department.
Let's raise the age a little bit, Dr. Bass. And let's talk a little bit about the requirements for a college student. I think so many times our emphasis is on grade school kids and toddlers, whatever term that we want to use. But tell us about college students. Is there an expectation there?
Yeah, so there is an extra vaccine that you get usually around age 11 and 12, and then a booster around 14 to 16, and that's for colleges, the meningococcal vaccine, and that's the vaccine that protects against meningitis. That's very important before going to college to have. You also do need to be up to date on all your other vaccines that you needed for grade school, specifically MMR and Hep B are definitely asked for in college.
Who's keeping track of all of this? I'm dizzy. I'm busy with you telling all this stuff to do, but who's keeping track and the age? Is it up to mom? You know?
No.
Or the doctor?
I hope not.
Yeah. So the CDC is a great website that really goes through all the different options of vaccinations. And your own Oklahoma Health Department here has a website, has an entire page just on immunizations.
Okay.
It has great information for parents and things like that, what your child should expect, and even a perfect chart where it tells you, okay, my kid's going to this grade, I need to be getting this shot.
Okay.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah, and your
help.
doctor knows. Like,
Okay.
ask your doctor.
Okay.
They do know.
All right, very good.
So in 5 years from today, when I forget everything
Yeah.
that you just said, what is the best way to go about finding out the rules on immunization?
Yeah, for Oklahoma, www.ok.gov/health. That website gets you to your health department's basically general page, and then there's a link on the side that'll get you to the diseases prevention, which will get you to their vaccine, and that has everything there. I was really impressed. Lots of great information for parents about how good these vaccines are and how safe, and also going to your doctor. So if you're with your newborn and things like that, you should be seeing your doctor every 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. We see you pretty frequently in those first couple of years, and we make sure that we get face-to-face time to remind you about these vaccines.
Dr. Maya Bass is our special guest here at the round table this morning. Good morning, Enid. It's 7:46. Again, Holden State at 67 degrees. Forgive me, Dr. Bass, for going back to the old days, if you will. But can you kind of share, based on your experience and the knowledge that you have, okay, people were getting their shots way back into the 70s compared to here in 2017. Has there been any measured, I guess, I'm trying to find the word. I'm trying to figure out if what we know back in the 70s is so outdated now compared to 2017. Were there a lot of unnecessary things or things that maybe we missed?
Well, the big difference is that now we're actually able to prevent a lot of childhood illnesses that we didn't know how to protect against before.
Okay.
So back in the 70s, I mean, actually, I think even as late as the 1980s, there was an outbreak of measles in Oklahoma that had 1 death. And prior to the measles, mumps, and rubella shot, we had somewhere around 400 to 500 deaths from those diseases that are now preventable, and we are starting to increase the amount of diseases we can protect against, like the chickenpox shot. That's a pretty new vaccine in the scheme of things, and now we're able to prevent against yet another childhood illness that was causing a lot of issues with children.
That's a great answer to a terrible question that I had, you know? I was just trying to figure out, are we much smarter today than we were back then? So thank you for salvaging that terrible question.
So we've heard a lot of the benefits of immunization. Is there ever a time where there would be an exception?
So Oklahoma does allow for exemptions. They actually have a form that you have to fill out and present to your school or daycare center. There's 3 groups of people that get exemptions. The first group are those that need a medical exemption. So those are kids that either have an allergy to the shot or become anaphylactic to specific things that are inside the shot. Specifically, the people with egg allergies have some vaccines they can't get. And then there's a group of people that have problems with their immune system, and so they're not allowed to get certain shots. And then the second group is the religious exemption. So if your religion dictates that you cannot have vaccinations, then you are allowed to have an exemption filled out and aren't required to get the vaccines. And then Oklahoma does allow for personal reasons exemption, and that's a lot more vague, but it basically is if a parent decides that they don't want certain vaccines for their child.
Or if you're allergic to needles or something like that, right? Is that
We use non-allergenic needles, so
I'm sorry.
nobody's allergic to our needles. We even use latex-free everything, so no excuses.
Sometimes it's the sight of the needle that people are allergic to. Well, we've been talking this morning basically of kind of pre-K or elementary kids and all the way up to college students. Let's move the clock a little forward. There's a few of us in the room that may be over 30, but let's just say 50 and over. Are there adults, and we'll take that benchmark of 50 years of age and older, should they be concerned about any type of shots?
Yes,
Immunization
so
shot?
the yearly flu shot, definitely
Okay.
an important thing to get. You actually need a booster for your Tdap, your tetanus, diphtheria, and whooping cough shot. So that one you need every 10 years. And you actually might need it a little sooner if you become pregnant or get a cut from a metal object. Or if you're going to be around a newborn infant, you got to make sure that you're up to date on that booster because they can't be protected against whooping cough. So you want to make sure you're protected. And then there's the pneumonia shot. So definitely important to talk to your doctor. Certain medical conditions require you to get the pneumonia shot before age 65, but everyone should be getting it after the age of 65. And then the last one is the zoster vaccine. So zoster is a fancy word for shingles, and so you can get that shingles vaccine over the age of 60.
Okay.
So one quick question before we move on to the next thing. Following up with Steve's question, I know that he asked that information right now, but normally as an adult, you don't go to the doctor every day. So how, besides being interested in finding out what we need as adults regarding immunizations, is there anything else? Is there anything that's out there that can help us get that information?
So yeah, that information is all on the CDC website, cdc.gov. They have a great chart about adult vaccines and what you should be getting. And it is something that I really ask my patients, you know, if they're up to date on their shots, when you see them for your annual wellness visit, it's a great time to make sure that everything's up to date.
Good job. Well, we got to move on to the next thing. Dr. Bass, you are a wealth of information.
Thank you.
So, very good. And they can find Dr. Maya Bass at Great Plains, is it Health Center?
Great Salt Plains Health Center,
okay,
right down
very
on
good.
South 30th Street.
Okay, very good. Thanks for being with us at the round table today. Very, very informative.